The crimes, robberies, drug dealing, and evidence planting. Previously, in Episode 1, we uncovered the beginnings of one of the most shocking police corruption scandals in modern U.S. history, the Baltimore Police Gun Trace Task Force. We explored how a specialized unit created to fight gun violence slowly drifted into misconduct, and how years of chaos in the department, especially after the death of Freddie Gray in 2015, allowed corruption to spread unchecked. But that was only the foundation. In this episode, we go deeper into the crimes the officers committed when they believed no one was watching. From illegal surveillance to robberies, drug dealing, and the planting of evidence, today we expose the brutal truth about how far the GTTF was willing to go. If you missed Episode 1, you can always go back and watch it, but this episode stands strong on its own. Now, let's continue the story. Jenkins' secret trafficking operation. The transformation of the Gun Trace Task Force into a criminal organization didn't happen overnight. It started small, a stolen stack of cash here, an unreported seizure there, and then grew into a full-scale, organized criminal enterprise. At the center of it all was Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, a man with charisma, aggression, and a dangerous belief that the ends justified the means. Jenkins had a nickname for drug dealers. He didn't call them suspects or targets. He called them monsters. And to hunt these monsters, he began using a method far outside the law. Jenkins secretly purchased illegal GPS tracking devices, small magnetic units he would attach to cars without warrants, without approval, and without anyone's knowledge. With these trackers, Jenkins could follow people anywhere, to stash houses, to cash pickups, to drug deliveries, to secret drop locations. This technology gave him a level of power no officer should have, the ability not just to investigate crime, but to control it, predict it, and even exploit it. And he did. Instead of stopping drug operations, Jenkins began timing his moves to rob drug dealers, steal their money, take their drugs, and flip those same drugs back into the streets for profit. The trackers transformed him from a police officer into a predator. The Umar Burley case. A death, a cover-up, and a decade of lies. One of the darkest moments in the entire GTTF timeline didn't begin with the task force itself. It began years earlier, in April 2010, when the same officers who later joined GTTF committed a crime the city would never forget. On that day, officers including Wayne Jenkins, Ryan Gwynn, and Detective Sean Suter attempted to stop a car driven by Umar Burley, with his friend Brent Matthews in the passenger seat. The stop was illegal. There was no probable cause, no report, no justification. Just another random street stop, the kind these officers often use to shake down citizens. Burley panicked and fled. A high-speed chase tore through Baltimore streets. Moments later, Burley's vehicle crashed into another car. Inside that car was 86-year-old Elbert Davis, driving with his wife Fosa Kane beside him. Elbert Davis was killed instantly. Fosa Kane survived, but with devastating injuries that would affect her for the rest of her life. Instead of taking responsibility, the officers did something unthinkable. They planted 30 grams of heroin in Burley's car. They wrote false reports. They testified that the drugs belonged to him. Their lies were so convincing that Burley was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for drugs the police themselves planted. For years, the truth was buried. Meanwhile, the Davis family mourned. Fosa Kane, severely injured in the crash, lived the rest of her life carrying the physical and emotional scars. She passed away years later, never fully recovering from the trauma. It wasn't until 2017, during the federal investigation into the Gun Trace Task Force, that the truth finally surfaced. Burley and Matthews were exonerated, their convictions vacated. In 2020, the city approved nearly $8 million in compensation for their wrongful imprisonment. In 2023, the city paid the Davis family $6 million for the death of Elbert Davis and the lifelong injuries suffered by his wife. A decade of lies, the decade of suffering, all caused by officers sworn to protect the public. The full criminal operation emerges. The Burley case revealed something important. The corruption did not begin with GTTF. GTTF was simply the point where the corruption grew too big to hide. As Jenkins rose through the ranks, he took his illegal tactics with him. Illegal searches, stolen cash from homes and cars, robberies disguised as police raids, pounds of drugs stolen and resold, evidence planted to protect officers, false reports written as cover stories. And the unit followed his lead. The Gun Trace Task Force became a squad of officers who operated like a criminal gang with badges, untouchable, protected, and feared on the streets of Baltimore. Federal investigators would later uncover over 2,000 tainted convictions, more than $22 million in civil settlements, families destroyed, innocent men imprisoned, communities terrorized by the very officers meant to serve them. And all of this? This is only the beginning. The crimes you've heard today were only part of the Gun Trace Task Force story. In Episode 3, we uncover how the federal investigation finally began, and how the FBI slowly pulled apart a police unit that believed it was untouchable. If you're just joining this series, make sure you go back and watch Episode 1 for the full background. And if this deep dive is opening your eyes, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this series with someone who needs to see the truth. Episode 3 is coming soon. Stay tuned.